you talk about relationships, and when we talk about relationships, what we're really talking about is trust. Right. So like you and I think we trust each other, right? We may not always agree, but we can come and if we trust each other, we can say, hey, like I trust that Dan like has the best interest of his audience, motor carriers. I trust that he has that at heart, right? You trust that I'm doing my best to do it. I may not always do it right. We may create some unnecessary friction for carriers at times, but like so you've lowered the barrier and said, okay, we can at least see eye to eye without playing this like, can we trust each other game? And so a lot of friction lives when there's a low trust environment. So if you can just increase trust, a lot of that friction just naturally goes away because we don't have to ask so many questions. We can go faster. And so when it comes to partnerships, so one of the kind of product tenets we have is like we want to reduce the total surface area of risk for our customers. So what does that mean? Well, we're reducing surface area of risk, which means we're pulling fraud and the losses associated with fraud out of the network. The flip side of that, when you reduce surface area of risk, is you now have a focus area. And so what happens is it unlocks value across the freight broker, right? And we do that technically different than any other vendor in data layer versus application layer. Like there's some things that we do that enable us to interact with partners differently. And so you take like an agentic AI company, right? Whose job is maybe to answer the phone, right? And enable a human. Well, if we can tell that AI company, whether this is a good actor or a bad actor, right? We've now, with our VoIP endpoint, protected the network. But if we can tell the AI company, hey, this is a good actor, and oh, by the way, this is something about that carrier's characteristics and how they work with that broker, that tech stack can now enable a better experience for the carrier in terms of the loads that they're able to move. You see what I'm saying? Like a carrier could conceivably call about one load, and the AI could see, based on what we know about that carrier, that there's actually other loads they can tell that carrier about. When you think about moving more freight per person in a broker, right? When you think about a broker's P&L, you have to help the carrier to do that because you have to give fewer carriers more loads. Like the things that improve a broker's operating margins actually help the carrier.